a lot of younger people, definitely of the collegiate age, are completely out of their wit in the way that they view the world, and especially what they thought the world looked like before the current generation or the current era that we live in. They don't understand it. Like, they can't grasp their mind around those concepts. And often this is why when you ask them basic fundamental things, despite them even being highly educated, is they don't know. They don't know what's actually going on. And you look at like education, definitely in how it exists in this country. It's not really education. Like, that's not really what it is. It's more outside of a few exceptions. It's more as it exists, the university system and the public education. It's indoctrination. It's creating little minions for the state, little soldiers, right? Which is ironically that's what the kind of Prussian, it's kind of what the system was always designed to do. Okay, but this is an interesting finding here. That most students, this is the title, and we'll get into what the actual data, what it said. Most college students unaware of social progress made in U.S. and worldwide. All right, so what are they talking about? Fewer than half of the American college students are aware of social progress made in the U.S. and across the world in terms of literacy, poverty, and life expectancy, according to a new report. American colleges and universities play a vital role in educating future political, cultural, and business leaders. That is very true, and that's why everything has gone to crap. The goal in our survey is to understand how well we are equipping our future leaders with knowledge, openness, optimism, and agency to aid agency. Imagine that you're grooming soldiers, and we're talking about agency here, to aid in continuing society's progress, which isn't what agency actually is. It's like you have the agency to do what we need you to do. And this is what another, of course, academic in terms of the co-author of the report. The university's American College Student Freedom, Progress, and Flourishing Survey found that based on what they have learned in school, 45% of U.S. college students believe the world is better off than it was 50 years ago among the measures such as literacy, life expectancy, and poverty. And of course, it goes in the past 50 years, extreme poverty around the world. We know this. Hunger levels have been falling. They've decreased. Life expectancy has gone up. And he said while the data in WHO shows life expectancy worldwide increasing by 6 years between 2000 and 2019, the pandemic took a toll on its progress. I think there were many people such as myself that said there will be things that you could look at as a good thing that the world has stumbled upon that are going to take a major hit during the pandemic, not because of the pandemic, but because of the government's reaction to said pandemic. It says it's affected the global poverty rates, which are determined by a number of people living on less than $1.90 per day. And it says prior to the pandemic, the global poverty rate declined for 25 years. Either way, it says among conservatives polled, 50% said that they believe the people are better off 5 decades before. This is compared to 45% of liberal and liberal-leaning students who said the same. The findings suggest that many students are not being equipped with what we might call a progress mindset. Well, that's what happens when you spread doom and gloom. I have collected data showing young Americans are not optimistic about the future, which, okay, it'd be their own fucking fault. But it still surprises me that so many young people, particularly students with access to a college education, do not feel hopeful and inspired. Oh, man, this speaks to a core cultural issue. And it's funny that these guys have to come up with all these fancy studies and findings and stuff to try to figure out what it is. I'm going to explain to you exactly what happened and why so many young people don't understand what's happening in the real world. and aren't really optimistic. It's a very easy thing to discover, or rather to explain. You have cultivated a culture of people that are nihilists. Black pillars, and nihilists. When you think about the hyper emphasizing on like social issues, right? Well, you have very blessed people who are in decent economic standards, might not be rich or anything, but you have somehow convinced them they are victims. You have convinced them that their world can't move unless you move it for them. You've convinced them to become reliant upon external factors. This is not just built into the public education system. This is built even in your approach to how you deal with mental health. Everything is external. It's nothing that involves the individual, which is really what's being signified here, is that there has been a move away, which is ironically what Mussolini, who was a fascist, obviously, what he thought that he was right in this sense, because he thought that this next kind of generation during his time was going to be the era of the collective. That's literally in the doctrine of fascism, and he assumed that the time before him or before the fascist reign was the time of the individual. So what you've had, it's not just with Italy, it's not just with various European countries from Russia and their hyperemphasis of Marxism during that time, and various forms of it, albeit of communism, be it from Trotskyites or Bolsheviks or whatever, in European kind of concept of emphasizing the collective over the individual. And this is exactly what it is you got. You got a bunch of nihilist people who are not optimistic at all, despite progress that has ever been made, because all you've taught them for the most part is that they're a victim. This is what they call all these, what they basically do with public education, where they say, hey, even at kids at a very young age, I know some of y'all call it CRT or whatever, but even at kids at very young ages, they are instilling in them that something is fundamentally wrong with the world. And they are instilling this sense of, well, you're different, and not good different, like you're an individual, like, oh, well, some superficial thing, so you'll never be where you black kid will never be that white kid or where they're at. Now, you're instilling these types of ideals, and that's all done by you. That's all for the most part done by the progressives, because the system is designed for them to maintain sort of control. So when you can be surprised, but it'd be your own doing. You wonder why they don't understand how the real world operates. You wonder why they're so just not optimistic about the future. Well, that was something that y'all created. You moved to the collective and away from the individual. And you have a bunch of people who feel like their world cannot move unless someone else moves it for them. They do not understand that they may have it way better off than what even their previous generation, like their mothers, fathers, if they got them, actually experienced. They don't even understand that, because you've been telling them through your media, through your entertainment, through your education, that something is fundamentally wrong with them, and they are victims, even when they're not. This whole intersectionalism and that's what you perpetuated, is a generation of nihilists. They don't value work. They think actually work is something that you demonize, right? There's something fundamentally flawed or something wrong with the fact that you work. So what else are you going to get other than a generation of people that don't look forward to the future? It is your own doing, and it has largely been led by progressives. Make no mistake. You just listened to a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake, which is live throughout the week at 12 p.m. Central on youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. Be sure to check out my website, ericdjuly.com, so you can stay up to date with everything it is that I'm doing. You can also become a member and get access to a bunch of cool perks and exclusive content, which includes a social media hub where you can interact with myself and other members. It even has an app that you can get, which is now live in the Google and Apple stores.